Okay, people that are at home, my computer froze up on me, so we have questions 37 and 39. The answers are up there on the board. I'm not going to read through all of them because the problems we do after this are the same type questions, just different numbers. So you can look at those, people at home. 41. So again, some description, explanation between 37 and 39 is the same as explanation for number 41. They give a sign as negative 1/3. Negative 1/3, yes, negative 1/3, which tells us that it's down. It's down in the third or fourth quadrants. And cosine is positive, yep, positive 2 radical 2 over 3. So it'd be down, and cosine is positive, so it'd be to the right, so it'd be in the fourth quadrant. So the angle, theta, whatever it is somewhere between 270 and 360, but again, you don't need to know that. Tangent, you don't need to know for this problem. You need to understand that. Cotangent, secant, and cosecant. Okay, so let's find tangent. Tangent is sine over cosine. We already have sine over cosine written that way. The 3's cancel, so we're left with negative 1 over 2 radical 2, which is unacceptable. Times by radical 2, we're going to have negative 1 radical 2. Times that by radical 2. Radical 2 times radical 2 is 2, times 2 is 4. I'm going to do cosecant next, that's the easiest. Flip negative 1/3. It's negative 3 over 1, or just negative 3. I'm going to find cotangent next. I'm not going to flip this one. I'm going to flip this one over here, because that'll have a radical on top. If we do that, we'll have 2 radical 2 over negative 1, which is negative 2 radical 2. When you divide by negative 1, it just makes it negative. For secant, flip cosine, we have 3 over 2 radical 2. We times the top and the bottom by radical 2. We're going to have 3 radical 2. Radical 2 times radical 2 is 2, times 2 is 4. So again, people at home, do questions 37 and 39 the same way. They give you sine and cosine, find tangent, and flip those 3 answers in order to get the reciprocal functions. Okay, that was 41. Number 43. Okay, now, it's kind of hard to do here, but if you could, don't look at your paper right yet. Just look up at the board. They tell us that sine is 12 over 13. 12 over 13. They ask us for the other 5 trig functions, okay? So, they tell you sine is this. They didn't tell you cosine, okay? The other ones, they gave you sine and cosine. Now, if they simply gave you sine as 12/13, that's not enough information to do the problem. Okay, that's why I said don't look at your paper, because the paper gives you more information. I mean, if sine is 12/13, if sine is positive 12/13, that tells you it's up. Well, is it in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2? We don't know. Now, if you look at your paper, they tell you. They tell you it's in quadrant 2. They tell you it's in quadrant 2, okay? So if they didn't tell you that, you wouldn't be able to figure it out. There's not enough information, okay? It's in quadrant 2. So we're going to draw a triangle in quadrant 2. And be careful, I saw a few people on their homework quizzes draw their triangles like this, okay? You always draw your triangles connected to the x-axis, never to the y-axis, okay? So, and if you're wondering, it's going to be a right triangle, and this is our reference angle, okay? And again, it's in quadrant, it had to be in quadrant 1 or 2 because sine is positive, okay? And they're telling you it's in quadrant 2. If you're wondering, how the angle and what the angle should look like, don't worry about it. Make this a 90-degree angle, make it a right angle. This could be whatever you want, okay? So sine is 12 over 13. Sine is 12/13. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Here's my angle. Opposite's 12, and the hypotenuse is 13. Now we want to find the other side.
Is this that 5, 12, 13?
I told you to write that on your unit circle. That's one that's really nice to know, because if you don't know it, you got to use the Pythagorean theorem, which doesn't take long, but it's easier. Just remember 5, 12, 13. So this is 5. 5, 12, 13. Right triangle, 5, 12, 13. Okay? Let's fill in the rest then. Cosine of theta. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 5 over 13. Adjacent's 5, hypotenuse is 13. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, 12 over 5. And then to find the other 3, just flip them. Cotangent 5/12. Secant is 13/5. And we should have known cosecant right away. As soon as they told us sine was 12/13, cosecant we should have known was 13/12. Okay?
Do we leave that fraction form?
I would. I'd prefer it in fraction. I would. If you made it decimals, I wouldn't mark you wrong, but I'd have to grab a calculator and find out if it's right. I would leave them as fraction. Because,
Well,
I
not
mean,
decimal, but like 1 and 1/12.
I would still leave it like this. And the reason is, our definition, for example, of sine is opposite over hypotenuse. I'm giving you a fraction.
Okay.
They prefer it to be fractions. It's not wrong, but that's just typically left as improper fractions instead of mixed numbers. Question on that? That's wrong, by the way. I made a mistake. I want to see if anybody's going to catch it. I made a mistake on that problem. And you're sitting there going, oh, crap. It's going to be very easy to fix. Very simple to fix, okay? You're not going to have to erase it all, okay? You just have to add some stuff. There's something wrong with this. Any ideas?
Negative.
What?
Negative 5?
Why?
This is going to the middle.
Perfect answer. That shouldn't be 5. Should be negative. Should that be negative 12?
No.
Why?
No.
Up. Should 13 be negative? Why? Why shouldn't 13 be negative?
Hypotenuse is always positive.
Because I said so. Okay. It has to be a negative 5. So wherever you see a 5, it needs to be negative. That 5 should be negative. That 5 should be negative. Now, should tangent be positive or negative, though? Oh, we've got 5s there. Yeah, they're going to be. Yeah, duh. Okay. But the reason why they should be negative also is because sine is positive, cosine is negative. Positive divided by negative is a negative. Okay. Now it's right. Okay. 45. Okay, they tell us cosine is negative. So that means it's going to be to the left. Okay? But they're telling us in quadrant 3. Okay? So we draw a picture in quadrant 3 of a triangle. In quadrant 3, connected to the x-axis. Okay, a right triangle in quadrant 3, theta is right there. And it says cosine, it says negative 4/5. And the negative's right in the middle there, okay? Now, I want to make sure you understand, you guys know that negative 4/5 is the same as negative 4 over 5, which is the same as 4 over negative 5. They're all the same, okay? You can have the negative in the middle, or on top, or on bottom, okay? Well, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, adjacent would be 4/5, is that what I said? 4, hypotenuse would be 5. Well, is the negative going to go on the 4 or is it going to go on the 5, or doesn't it really matter?
4.
The 4 because it's to the left, and the 5 has to be positive. So the negative has to go on the 4. And this is another one that's really nice to have memorized. 3.
Negative.
Good. Not 3, negative. Why?
Down.
Down. You're going to find a lot of these questions have one-word responses. Okay? Okay. It's going to be negative 3. So let's fill all these in. The sine of the angle, whatever it is opposite negative 3 over 5, the hypotenuse. Cosine they gave us, negative 4/5. And tangent is opposite over adjacent or sine over cosine. It doesn't matter either way. It's negative 3 over negative 4. I'd really prefer it be positive 3/4. If you put negative 3 over negative 4, I'd probably give you the point. But I mean, a simpler answer is positive 3/4. Negative over negative is positive. Cotangent is positive 4/3. Secant is negative 5/4. Cosecant is negative 5/3. We're just flipping the cosine, sine, and tangents. Going too fast, too slow, just right? Hopefully, okay. Just tell me to slow down or speed up. Probably not speed up. Okay, let's look at 47. Let's do a few more, then we'll do our homework quiz, or not our homework quiz, our unit circle quiz. 47. Okay. Oh, by the way, in case you're curious, you could cross off 89 to 94. We're going to stop at 88. So that's 6 less questions. If you want to cross off 89 to 94, we're not doing those at all. It's 47. Okay, so they don't tell you what quadrant, well, they do, but they don't say in quadrant 1, in quadrant 2. They tell us in 47 that theta is between 90 and 180, so it's got to be in quadrant 2. It's got to be in 2. So I'm going to draw my picture here. I mean, here's 0, here's 90, here's 180. It's got to be somewhere in here. So we draw our triangle in here somewhere. And there's theta. And they're telling us sine is 5/13. Sine is 5/13. Sine is opposite 5/13 is hypotenuse. And this is already brought up a couple problems back, or maybe just one problem back. 2 problems back. Yeah, 12. Is it 12?
Yep.
It's not 12.
Negative.
No.
Negative 12. Its distance is 12, but since it's to the left, it's got to be negative 12. 5 is still positive because it's up. And then fill everything in. Cosine of the angle, tangent of the angle. Cosine is adjacent, negative 12 over hypotenuse 13. Tangent is either opposite over adjacent, negative 5/12, or sine over cosine, which is also negative 5/12, so it doesn't matter. And then flip them for cotangent, secant, and cosecant. So 13/5 for cosecant, negative 13/12 for secant, and negative 12/5 for cotangent. Also, just so you guys know, when we do all the odds, then first 2 homework quizzes, I don't think I've given you any odds that I give you the evens for your homework quiz. If you're wondering, well, do I gotta write these down? Generally, I pick evens, but I throw in some odds every now and then, so, you take it, and not to say, I think everybody is writing this stuff down, but, if you don't, and it's not that I just want you to write them down just because I want you to write them down, I want you to do it so that when you're doing your assignments, you can refer back to them. So, anything we do together in class, that's still fair game on a homework quiz, so just keep that in mind. Let's do maybe 2 more, then we'll do our unit circle quiz. 49 and 51. Yep. So 49, okay? Looks like it's more complicated. It's not, okay? They tell you that theta is between pi over 2 and pi. Well, hopefully you guys all know, because you're going to be quizzed over here in about 5 minutes or so. Pi over 2 is 90 degrees, and pi is 180 degrees. So again, it's in quadrant 2. So we draw a triangle in quadrant 2. Our reference angle is theta. Cosine is negative 1/3, and the negative's right in the middle there. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. I'm going to put the 1 right here, and the hypotenuse is 3 right there. And the negative has to go on the 1 for 2 reasons. It's to the left, and it can't go on the 3 because that's hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is always positive. So there's no special triangle here, okay? We got to use the Pythagorean theorem. We'll label that x or y or whatever you want. Be careful here, okay? A lot of students think when you use the Pythagorean theorem, you always say, a squared plus b squared is c squared, so you take the 2 numbers. This squared plus this squared equals that squared. Not necessarily, okay? A and b are the 2 legs. The legs are what make up the right angle. So a and b are x and negative 1. C is a hypotenuse. So x squared plus negative 1 squared equals 3 squared. X squared plus 1 is 9. Subtract 1 to each side, x squared is 8. Square root it. We get x equals plus or minus radical 8. That does simplify. There's a square that goes into 8, 4, twice. So radical 4, radical 2. Radical 4 is 2, radical 2. Now, I put the plus or minus there. I mean, do I need the plus or minus or not on this? Yeah, kind of no. You have to consider the plus or minus. We're trying to find x though. Is it plus or is it minus in this case? In this case, why? One word, up. Okay? If it was going down, it would have been negative. Okay? You can have negative lengths on triangles. You have to deal with directions. Okay? So it's 2 radical 2. Okay? So we have to consider it, but then we ask ourselves, no. Since we're going up, it's got to be positive. So, sine, cosine, tangent. And they gave us which one?
Cosine.
Cosine is negative 1/3. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, 2 radical 2 over 3. And And tangent is opposite over adjacent, 2 radical 2 over negative 1, which is negative 2 radical 2. Cotangent, secant, and cosecant. I'm going to do secant first, that's the easiest. We flip negative 1/3, you have negative 3 over 1, which is negative 3. Cotangent, this is over 1, so you flip it, it's 1 over negative 2 radical 2. We times our radical 2 though, on top and bottom. We're going to do that, we're going to get radical 2 over radical 2 times radical 2 is 2, times 2 is negative 4. And then to find cosecant, we flip sign. It's going to be 3 over 2 radical 2. Times our radical 2, you're going to have 3 radical 2 over radical 2 times radical 2 is radical 4, which is 2, times 2 is 4. Good news is once we get to number 57, we're not going to get to 57 today. Once we get to 57, those last questions, 69 through 87, very, very little writing, okay? I don't think, these are especially hard, it's just a lot of writing, a lot of busy work. Just want to make sure you really have all 6 trig functions down, have a good understanding of them. Last one for the day, then our unit circle quiz. 51, sine is 2/3. Okay, sine of theta is 2/3, and then they tell us the tangent is less than 0. Okay, so they're telling you sine is positive, so that means it's up. It's one of these two. If sine is positive, it's got to be up. Now tangent, you can't say up, down, left, right. Okay, that doesn't really make sense. It's sine and cosine are up and down and left and right. Tangent's less than 0. Tangent's negative. So is it going to be in quadrant 1 or is it going to be in quadrant 2? If tangent's negative, it's got to be in 2. Hopefully you have that down. I mean, you're going to be quizzed over here in about 5 minutes. It's got to be in here. If you look at the circled numbers that you're going to put on they better be positive here. They better be negative here. The circled tangents. So we draw this out here. Draw our theta. And sine is 2/3. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Sine is opposite 2. Hypotenuse is 3. I don't know what x is. So we have to use the Pythagorean theorem. That's not a special triangle. Okay, not a 3, 4, 5, not a 5, 12, 13. So a and b are x and 2. So x squared plus 2 squared is 3 squared. X squared plus 4 is 9. Subtract 4, x squared is 5. So x equals, we square root plus or minus radical 5. And which is it, plus radical 5 or negative radical 5? Negative, because left. It's to the left. To the left, to the left, to the left, just like the song. You guys remember that song, or are you guys too young?
What?
Beyonce? To the left, to the left, to the left. Irreplaceable?
You know that.
Do you know that? Okay. You thought Beyonce was up here for a minute, didn't you? Striking resemblance to her. Not quite. Okay, so sine of theta, cosine of theta, tangent of theta. Sine was 2/3. Before we did anything, we should have known what cosecant was. 3 over 2. Okay. Flip sine to find cosecant. Okay, for cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so negative radical 5 over 3. Tangent, we could do sine over cosine or opposite over adjacent. I'm going to do opposite over adjacent. So 2 over negative radical 5. We times our radical 5 on top and bottom. We have 2 radical 5 over radical 5 times radical 5 is regular 5. So 2 radical 5 over negative 5. To find cotangent, I'm going to flip this one. 2 over negative radical 5 is negative radical 5 over 2. And for secant, we flip negative root 5 over 3. We have 3 over negative radical 5 times radical 5. You have 3 radical 5 over negative 5. Question on these. Okay, so we'll probably spend Thursday and Friday on this, and then Monday I'll have a Tuesday I'll have a work day on this. We'll probably have a homework quiz over this probably next Thursday.
How's the